Hi there. In this recording, we're looking at storing images in a Power BI report. I have made an Excel spreadsheet which has hyperlinks in it, and I've uploaded that into my Power BI window. And when I choose Close and Apply, you will need to check. If I go to my column tools, this is where my image link lives. You need to check that your data type has been set to text and your data category has been set to an option called image URL. And then what you should be able to do when you create a report, you should be able to display your graphics in a table that looks like this. And then what I've done in addition to that is I've added some slicers onto this report so that you can filter the table by a descriptive colour or whatever. So I can say I only want to see orange butterflies, what have you, and then I can only see the orange ones, and there's 4 different types of orange one. Let's say I've spotted it and thought, oh, I think that's probably a painted lady. I can do an additional slicer filter in order to just show that particular species. And what I've also done is, having filtered to the species that you've seen, then I've connected it to a map which shows where everybody else in the group have spotted the butterflies. And if you hover over a push pin in the map, it will show you the latitude and longitude of where that person was, how many they saw, and the person who did the spot. And then there's another page at the back which has information on that species, what's its scientific name, how many did we spot at different times of a year. And I've also created a hyperlink here, which if you click on this little symbol will take you through to the Wikipedia entry for the painted lady. And what I would like to show you in this first video is basically how to get the table to display these images. Now, I wanted to show you first of all what my hyperlinks look like in Excel. And there's a little trick to getting the hyperlinks to work correctly in your spreadsheet. First of all, let me show you what it looks like. This is my website, and I've created a folder for all my butterfly images and uploaded my images into that folder. And the benefit of doing that rather than linking from something like Wikipedia is that I control the size of the images. I know that the images are not going to change in the future without my knowledge. But if you can't do that, you could link to a publicly available site like Wikipedia, so long as you have checked your copyright issues. All you need to do is make sure that you right mouse over your image and copy the URL from there. I don't need to host this on a page or anything, so long as it exists in a publicly available folder, if you like. And then if I pop into my Excel, don't do a normal paste, go to your Insert tab, and underneath the link button, you'll see whichever one you copied last will be at the top of that list, and then you just click on it from there, and that will paste it in to look like this. Now, I've already got my data in my model, so I'm just going to record doing this into a blank workbook just so that you can see how the import process works. So I've created a blank file in Power BI. I'm going to go to this option where it says import data from Excel and find the correct Excel spreadsheet and make sure that spreadsheet is not open, because it won't work when the spreadsheet is open. When I choose open, it will give me a little preview of my sheets. Now, can you see I've got one called butterfly spots and one called butterfly table? I actually need both of them. So I'm going to tick both of those little tabs. That's the name of my Excel tabs along the bottom here. And then I'm transform data. And it brings me into my Power Query editor. And this is where you need to go and find the URL column. So if I choose butterfly table, this image URL 1 and image URL 2 are both photographs. And all I would need to do, I'm going to get rid of my blank rows. For some reason, the table is bringing in loads of blank rows. So I'm going to choose an option called remove rows and remove blank rows before I load it up into my model, because I know I've only got 15 rows worth of data. And then I'm going to choose close and apply. And this should load up into Power BI now. Now, for the next stage, make sure you've closed your Excel spreadsheet and load your spreadsheet up into Power BI. And once you are in Power BI, if you go to a tab called Column Tools, make sure your image URL column is selected. Make sure your data type is set to text, and your data category, this is the important one, this won't do it by itself. You'll need to tell it that it is an image URL. And what that means is when you create your report, instead of showing this text of what the URL looks like, it will actually show the image itself. So if I go into my report view, I will just create an additional report. I'll get this little box out of the way. There we go. So I'm just going to create a little fake report. On my report, all I did was I chose a visualization called table. You need to have, in order for the filter to work, you know, we put those slicers on there. In order for them to work, you need to have whatever field you are going to filter by. So in my case, I'm going to have the common name and actually I've done it from the spots table. I don't really mean to do it from there. I'll do it from this table. I'll have the common name, the main color, and the image URL. And actually I've got 2 pictures, so I'll have both of them. And then they should appear as pictures. If at this point they don't, you just need to go back into your table view and just check this data category is set to image URL, and then it should work. You will need to do a little bit of fiddle-faddling around with the formatting to make the pictures the size that you want. Make sure you've got your table still selected, and when you go to this sort of paintbrushy icon called Format Your Visual, you have to kind of hunt through to find the size options for those columns. Now, having chosen this Format Your Visual button here, you should see lots of headings for all the different parts of your visual. And this is the thing I think that is tricky about working with Power BI, is trying to work out which option you're looking for, because as you choose each of these headings, you'll see there's a number of subheadings underneath. And sometimes it is quite difficult to find the option that you're looking for. So if possible, it's usually easier to use the search button rather than just hunting through each category. So if I just type in image size, can you see it's taken me straight to the image size box? And then I can type in whatever size I think I want it to be. Let's say I'm going to go for 100, and it's automatically making 100 by 100, and you can check whether you think that's big enough by having a look at your data. Let me show you what it looks like if I go up to maybe 200. Oh, that's a nice decent size. I think I'm going to leave it at 200 for the moment. Now, obviously, you can mess around to your heart's content to get the size that you want. Now, the other thing I might want to do is I might want to change the font size, and it is possible to change the font size of each column individually, and the headings individually, and the totals individually, and so on. But let's assume for the moment I want the font size to be the same for all of them. So in the search box, underneath the little paintbrush format your visual option, I'm just going to put in font size. And it comes up with an option called global font size. And I'm going to say I want everything to be 20, and then my headings are going to be 20, or my text is going to be 20, and so on. Now, for the next stage, what I would like to do is I would like to add a slicer that filters by this main colour column. So if I don't know what butterfly I'm looking for, I know, oh, it's basically orange. I can use the filter to find the species that I'm looking at. So on the visualizations pane over here, you are looking for a button called slicer, and it looks like it's got like a little funnel attached. And on there, I'm just going to drag my main color filter. Now with slicers, you can have them as little tick boxes like this, or if you go into the format your visual button, there's an option called slicer settings where you can change it to be individual little tiles, or you could have it as a drop down list. So if you're a bit short of space, you don't have to have all the options visible at once. I think I quite like having it as a vertical list, and I think I've got the space for it. And what that means is if I make that fit the list, I can just choose the colour that I'm looking for, and it filters down to just the species that are that colour. And I'm going to do the same thing again, click onto my background so that this filter is no longer selected, choose slicer again, and this time I'm going to add the common name of the butterfly as another slicer, which rather conveniently just fits in my report because I happen to know that speckled wood is the last one on my list. And then I can, if I know the name of the species rather than the colour, I can filter by a specific species. Now, I don't know whether you noticed in the earlier part of the video, we looked at a map that was filtered based on what you'd filtered on the front page. I want to show you how we did that. So I'm just going to choose my little plus sign to create myself a new page, and I'm going to create myself something called an Azure Map. And in my data, I have got the latitude and the longitude of where the person was when they recorded the spot. So I'm just going to pop latitude onto latitude, longitude onto longitude. And then what I'm going to do, I think I'll have the common name in the legend. And you should see you then get a different colour for each species. Now, what I would like to do is I would like to filter so that when I choose a specific butterfly type on this screen, when I go back to my map, it will only show me the butterfly that I've chosen. And actually, there's quite an easy way of doing this. If I go back to my screen with my filter on it, what I'm going to do is select the slicer that is going to basically link my pages together. And when you right mouse over your slicer, you'll get a copy and a copy visual option. Click onto the page that you want to filter to, and you don't get a right mouse paste option, but if you use Control V on your keyboard, that will work as a paste, and it will ask you if you want to synchronize your visuals. So basically it's saying, do you want, when you filter on one page, do you want that filter to go through to the second page? Well, in which case I do, so I'm just going to choose sync. And what should happen if I now say I would like to see common blue, when I'm displaying common blue on this page, when I go onto my map page, you can see it's selected common blue here, and it's only the common blue sightings that are visible. Now, if you would like to, you can leave this visible on the second page so it's obvious what you're looking at. But if you don't need it for any reason, there's an option on your view tab called sync slicers, and can you see there's a little column that's got an eye symbol that's saying whether or not the sync is visible. So if you think, well, you want to be able to see it on page 1 but you don't want to be able to see it on page 2, I can hide that visual but it will still work. Let's say I'm going to go for orange tip, so it's displaying orange tip on this page, and when I go to page 2, it's displaying orange tips on this page, which you can see by the legend up here, but you don't necessarily need to see the filter. What might be a good idea is, can you see it's filtered to show you orange tip up here because the text is so tiny, it's not super obvious. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase that so it's a nice big font size, because I know that I only need to have one species visible at a time now, so I don't need to have room for all of them. So if I click onto my map, go to format your visual, and I'm just going to search for legend, and then it's telling me what position do you want on your legend. I might have mine center right, and I might have it point size 20. And then we can just go check our change and say this time I'd like to see painted ladies. And when I go back to my map, it's obvious that I'm only seeing the spots for painted ladies. Now I think that I've shown you most of the techniques that you need to make this report happen, but please let me know if there's anything that I've missed out, and I will add that into a follow-up video. Thank you for watching.